sketchbooks. Hello, I am Jen Hernandez, the Atelierista, and I am going to show you one of my favorite projects to do with my art classes. I like to make this project with kids 8 and up in classes and residencies and workshops, but I've also made this project with kids as young as 2 with a lot of older kid or adult help. This project is usually one of the first ones that I'll do for a class because it really sets the tone for exploration and choice and skill building, and at the end of it, my students have something that they'll be using throughout the rest of the class. That's right, it's sketchbook making! Make your own sketchbook! Make something super cute! They're adorable! They're adorable! And fun and easy. So I'm a bit of a sketchbook fiend. I really like to have them and hold them and try out cool pens in them and basically just fill them with ideas and drawings and keep buying them and filling my house with them. I actually have several big old Rubbermaid tubs filled with sketchbooks and journals from just my entire life. It's really cool that I know how to make my own sketchbooks, and I'm really thankful for that because it saves me a little bit of money and I get to personalize my sketchbook and make it exactly the way I like it to be, including usually a lot of pockets. That's a pretty important element for me. And so I love making these sketchbooks with my students also because I want to pass on that feeling of you can make the things you need to create cool art. I do bookbinding classes for adults and for teens, and those can get really fancy and a little bit complicated, but this sketchbook project is so simple and so easy. You can do it pretty quickly with kids and using materials that are really easy to source at typical craft stores. So at any moment, you're only minutes and a few pages of paper away from having your very own very cool sketchbook. So I am excited to show you how I made these. Let's get started. The materials for our project include a 12 by 12 inch pad of scrapbook paper with very cute designs, some sketchbook paper, a little bit of embroidery thread and embroidery needles. We'll also use an awl for punching our binding holes and a pair of scissors. And I like this project because these are really simple materials that you can find pretty much in any craft store. And it's easy for parents to find them, it's easy for kids to work with them. So we're going to start off with selecting our cover from the scrapbook paper pad. These adorable little blueberries really spoke to me. They're sparkly, there's little smiley faces all over them, which you might not be able to see, but trust me, it's super cute. And so when you've chosen your cover, you're going to first figure out how do you want your cover to look on your sketchbook. There might be a special way that you want to orient your sketchbook cover according to the design, but once you've decided that, fold it in half so that your cover is ready. So if we compare this to a previous sketchbook that I've made, we notice it's a little bit too long, so we're going to need to do something with that excess. You can just cut it right off if you'd like, or if you're feeling really ambitious, you can turn this into a pocket by folding that excess up inside the sketchbook cover. So first you'd open up the sketchbook and then fold up the excess into the inside of the cover and press it all down and crease it to make these awesome pockets. A little bit of glue stick is going to go a long way to make sure those pockets are actually pockets and hold things in there. I'm a pretty big believer in having pockets in sketchbooks to hold all of the cool little inspirational things that you might find, so definitely worth it if you've got a little bit of the extra time to do it. But now, whether you have pockets or not, we need to punch our binding holes. Using the awl, we're going to punch 3 holes, 1 in the center and 1 on each end of the cover. Being really careful, especially when working with kids, to not accidentally stab yourself because this is sketchbook making, not stabbing myself with an awl project. And you'll want that awl to go all the way through the cover of the sketchbook from the inside out, and make sure to give it a little bit of a wiggle so that those holes are easy to find and easy to bind into. Next, we'll prepare our signatures with our sketchbook paper. And signatures are 4 sheets of paper folded together so that they fit neatly inside of the cover. For this project, I am using 80-pound white sulfite drawing paper from Dick Blick so that my students can use a variety of materials in their sketchbooks. And I've also made my cover just a little bit wider than the width of my signature so that I can fit multiple signatures into one cover. Normally, when I'm making sketchbooks with students, we stick with just a single signature, but for this video, I'm going to show you how to add signatures into this sketchbook because this is an ever-expanding sketchbook. You can add signatures and more paper into the book after you've filled it up with lots of ideas so that you can keep going. And I'll include those dimensions in the description below. So to start off binding our first signature, we've got 4 sheets of paper folded together, and we're going to reverse it just a little bit and put the cover inside the signature so that the middles line up. And then with our awl again, we're going to go back through the holes that we've already punched through the cover so that those same holes get punched into the signature at pretty much the exact same spot so that our signature and our cover holes all line up perfectly. Another way to set up punching holes into your signature is to take the signature folded and line up the fold with the inside fold of the cover, and then just sort of seeing where those holes are and with a pencil marking the holes onto the folded edge of the signature with a pencil or a little bit of marker. And so that when you pull the signature away from the cover, you've got little markings just on the folded part of the signature, and then you can use your awl and punch holes right at those marks. Just remember to be really careful using the awl so that you're not stabbing yourself and bleeding all over your cool new sketchbook. So you want to make sure that the holes in your signature line up with the holes in your cover so that everything is nice and neat and more or less straight. And then we can start binding with the embroidery thread. To measure out the right amount of thread to bind your sketchbook, I like to hold the skein in one hand and then pull the thread along the spine with the other and measure about 3 spine lengths of thread to bind with. Then we can grab our embroidery needles, and this is usually the most challenging part, both to get the needle out of the package and to also thread the needle. I try to use these needles with large eyes, especially for kids, so that's a little bit easier. You can find some really thick darning needles or tapestry needles that are made out of plastic online that I've used before. You'll probably need larger binding holes to bind with a thick needle like that. For this binding, we will start on the outside of the cover, placing our needle into the middle hole and passing it through the cover and through all sheets of the signature so that the needle comes through the inside of the book and leaving a tail about 4 to 5 inches of length outside of the book. Next, we'll pass the needle through one of the holes toward the ends and pull it through so that the thread on the inside of the book is taut. And then we'll pass the needle through the other hole from the outside back into the book, making sure to pass through all those sheets of paper and pulling the thread and the needle through. Lastly, we will pass the needle back through that middle hole, this time coming from the inside of the book and ending up on the outside, and we can remove the needle from there. I like to straighten up my threads a little bit, make sure that I have good length on both ends, and I also like to make sure that my ends are on either side of the thread that is passing through the middle along the folded edge of the book. And then tie a little knot or a bow, just like you might be tying your shoes. And trimming off any extra bits that you don't need can make it real decorative, or you can just tie a simple knot and cut most of it off. And this is a fully bound, ready to go sketchbook with pockets and pages that you can fill with all sorts of inspiration and ideas and experiments that I just think is super delightful. With all these materials prepped, we can make a single signature sketchbook with a class of maybe 15 students pretty quickly. But what if we want to add a second signature? To do that, we're going to follow the exact same steps as the first signature, starting with measuring out our thread in 3 spine lengths. And if you wanted to, you could even try different colors of thread for different signature bindings. But we're going to thread our needle just like before. And we'll follow the same binding pattern, starting with the outside of the cover in the middle hole, and bringing the needle up through, leaving a little bit of a tail on the outside, and making sure that the needle and the thread is also going through the middle hole in the new signature. You'll want to make sure to hold the signatures together right in the middle of the cover so that everything's nicely nested, and then out through one of the side holes just like before, and down from the outside to the last signature hole, and pulling your thread through. Lastly, we will place the needle back through the middle hole, this time coming from the inside of the book to the outside of the cover. Sometimes the thread gets a little bit tangled when we're binding multiple signatures like this, but we'll tie it off just like we did with the last signature so that everything is secure inside the cover. Maybe this time a double knot just to make it extra secure. And trimming off any excess thread that we don't need anymore. And now we have a 2 signature sketchbook, which was just as simple to make as a 1 signature sketchbook. And we can even make this a 3 or 4 signature sketchbook using the exact same process. So like I said, this is one of my favorite projects to start off a class or a residency with, because it really gets students in the mindset of creating something and being involved with what they work with. It's really kind of magical to see a student discover that they can create something that they maybe hadn't thought about making on their own before, and being involved in the process of working with new tools like thread and needles and awls and measuring paper out, and being that involved with the decision making for something that they're going to be using throughout the rest of the class or the residency. So I love this project. It's real straightforward. I kind of work this into every residency or class that I can, just because I think it's really delightful. And you also get a bunch of really adorable sketchbooks out of it. And these books are legit. They've got like artist drawing paper in them and pockets. I really love to encourage students to experiment and explore different ways to bind the books, to make it personal so that they know that these are their books, they get to make the decisions about what goes into them, and it's their own world for holding their ideas. So now I'd like to go over how to make a single sheet zine, which you just need a pair of scissors and a single sheet of paper. 8.5 by 11 printer paper is perfect. Hold it landscape-wise so that the long edges are along the top and the bottom, and then fold it in half just like we did with our sketchbooks. Making sure to crease that fold real good and then turn it around so that the fold is at the top. And then pulling up one of the open edges to meet that top fold and create another fold. Flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Pull the open edge up and have it meet the top fold, so that when you pick up this piece of paper, it's kind of like an accordion fold. Makes like the shape of a W or an M, which is great. And then I fold it in half and give it a good strong crease. You can fold it back the other way if you'd like to. But after that, you're just going to open up the entire thing all over again, and we have here 8 boxes. And we'll take this sheet again, same orientation, and fold it in half one more time, just like we did. And with the fold at the very top, we're going to cut along the center crease with our scissors, just to the middle. Just like that, one single cut. And this makes our zine. You can fold it open, fold the sheets down so that they create pages, and then fold the whole book closed. And now I've got a neat little zine, little tiny book that we can do absolutely anything we want to with it. I just want to show you some of the zines that some of my students have made in a previous class. This one was pretty neat. A student was inspired by a comic online and made their own little zine comic, which I thought was pretty cool. And this other student made one about their identity and listed some of the names that they appreciate going by, which I also thought was pretty neat. In the time it took me to record and edit this video, I ended up buying myself a really cool sketchbook. Even though, I mean, to be completely honest, neat is a really interesting word, but it's so beautiful. Look at the art of this sketchbook. It's gorgeous. This is the brand. Lays flat, beautiful. Anyway, just thought I'd share that. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope that you have made a really neat sketchbook with me today. If you like this and you want to see more projects and tutorials and lesson plans for educators, students, and artists of all kind, go to jenhernandezart.com/theatelierista. You can also support this page by liking, subscribing, and sharing the videos that you like. And you can go to my Patreon at patreon.com/theatelierista. Thanks so much, and I will see you next time.